Hey everybody, we're back at the cornfield. It's the 25th of August. Harvest won't be too far away. And it's time to wrap things up, to look at what worked, what didn't work, what we might try to improve on next year. So it's been a stressful year, particularly early. It's lasted late too. We've had way too much rain, lots and lots of cloudy weather, and I think that's going to have an effect on our grain yield to some degree. You know, in the 4 months that this corn's been out here, we've had about 25 inches of rain. We only get about 44 inches of rain in a year, so we're well over half what we normally get in a year, and that came in a 4-month period. So that gives you some idea of the number of rainfall events that we've had. It's been tremendous, so we've had lots of cloudy weather. First thing I want you to look at is weed control, and you can see over here to my right, we're green, we're weedy, lots of pigweeds. I bush hogged this last week, but as is fittingly for 2020, it rained us out that day, so some of the greenness has come back. And weeds are a detriment to yield. I think everybody knows that. And I want to talk a minute about my weed control. I think weed control is one of the most critical things in corn yield. Obviously fertility is in water and all those, but weed control is as well. Because if you have too many weeds, you've got competition. You've got competition for light, you've got competition for space, you've got competition for water, for nutrients, all those things. And corn is not a great competitor, so it needs some help. As you look down these rows, you know, you're going to see that we're very weed free. It's been tremendously wet, as we've already discussed, and yet we still have a good weed free corn crop. And I was hoping for that, and I've designed for it, at least I've tried to design for it. We burned down with gramoxone. There was a cover crop which gave us some shade. So we burned down with gramoxone. We've got some simazine, we've got warrant, and we've got sharpen, which I know is an odd mix, but it gives me 4 different modes of action. We've got Palmer pigweed, water hemp, a few other resistant weeds around. So even though I might not have seen any, I don't want any here either. So I'm using enough modes of action, hopefully to ward things off. We came back over the top with Realm Q, which is a 228 product. That gave me 2 more modes of action. We added a little bit more atrazine, and we used Roundup. So I've got 7 modes of action in 2 sprays here. I'm tickled, I'm weed free, and I think it's particularly important to be weed free late in the year when you've got grain fill taking place. For roughly a month or so after pollination, month to 6 weeks, we're filling out those grains. We want them to be heavy, we want them to be dense so that we get a lot of weight coming off each year. All right, we've talked about weed control, and I'm very satisfied with that. I feel like my weed control program did not cost me any yield at all. And now what I want to look at is some of my planter efficiency and how it worked. You know, I'm looking at the stand, I'm looking at the spacing, and as a general rule, I'm pretty happy. They're spaced pretty good, which is what you want. I don't have a lot of doubles. You know, I've got a missing one right here, but seed corn's only guaranteed at a certain germination percent, so you're going to have a few missing. What I'm particularly pleased about is I don't have many doubles. Now, the other thing, and this is where I'm not very happy, if you look at my ear heights, you know, they're kind of all over the place. They're up, they're down, they're high, they're low, and that suggests to me that my emergence was spread out over a longer period of time than I want. And when you have your emergence spread out over a long period of time, some of those late emergent plants generally don't make as good an ear. You know, they're competing not only with weeds and things, but they're competing with the other corn that's got a head start on them. So, you know, if you look at that, you'll see quite a bit of variation in that. One thing about my planter is I don't have any kind of downforce. That would be nice to have. It's a small planter, it'd be inefficient to have downforce on it. But we're also planting on a Piedmont hillside. And I found driving stakes and sticking in wires, there's a fair amount of rock in this field. So even with downforce, I'm fighting a rocky soil, which gives me a little bit of natural variation in where that seed, the seed depth. And I would like it if all my seeds were the same depth. Obviously, it doesn't appear like they were. Some came up faster than others, and that's borne out by where my ear heights are. Okay, we'll finish up right here looking at some ear sizes, looking at some rows around and things of that nature. I've got 2 piles. This was my high management plot. I've got in the variety plot what I would call a lower management plot over here, same hybrid, so both piles represent the same hybrid, and there's some differences in what we'll see. As we were going through this, you know, Each plot at one time had 140 units of nitrogen on it. This plot later on got another 40 for a total of 180. But when we were in that ear determination phase of growth, that V5 through V7, when we're determining the number of rows around and the lengths, they both had 140 units on them. But this had some things done a little bit different to it because it's the higher management plot. Over here, one of the things that we did is we ran a 2x2x2 band at planting. So we put some starter fertilizer out, some ammonia thiosulfate. We did not do that in the varieties right over there. So that's one difference. Another difference is at V4, I came in on this and applied a little bit of foliar fertilizer, a 3-18-18 material at 1.5 gallons to the acre with the equivalent of a pint of micronutrients as well. Because those are two of the things that Dr. Heiniger's research out here in the Piedmont have shown that work almost every year. Almost every year we get a good yield advantage out of those two practices. So those are two of the things that I have done. And if you look at these ears, you know, this came from the variety patch. And, you know, we've got either 12 or 14 rounds. And I'd like to have 16 or 18. You need 500 to 600 to 700 kernels per ear, and we're not going to get that very easily with 14 rounds. So that came off the variety patch. It did not have the advantage of some of the higher management things, and I've only got a couple of them in here. This is what one looks like. Both of these, we've got a 16 and an 18 that came out of this patch versus a 14. Or a 12, and you can see I've got a lot more kernels on these stalks or these ears right here than I do over here. So, you know, my higher management was well worth those extra couple of trips. Actually, one extra trip when I put the foliar on. I'm going through planting anyway, so I can put my 2x2x2 band on as I'm planting. Well worthwhile. I did make a decision in this field. Corn prices were low and they're still low. I don't know if they're going to go up or not. This is a long-term manure site, so we have very, very high levels of P and K. This is a cover crop field. You can see some signs of that cover crop out here still today, and that means we're recycling some nutrients towards the top of the ground with that cover crop, and that allows me to know that the top couple or 3 inches are pretty rich. So I made the decision to go with a little bit cheaper starter fertilizer. I used ammonium thiosulfate instead of a complete fertilizer in order to save a little bit of money. But on the variety plot over there where we used no starter and we didn't use any foliar, over 90% of my years are either 12 or 14 rows around. And it takes a big long year to make much yield at that. Over here on the high management plot, we dropped that percentage by 40%. Only about half of these are 14 rounds, the other halves are 16 or 18. So I have increased my kernel numbers per ear, and hopefully I've increased my weight per ear too with that little extra 40 units of nitrogen that went on late. So I'm well pleased with what my two management decisions did. They gave me extra kernels. That should give me extra yield.
Hey everyone, we're back out here for our final visit to the Yadkin corn plot prior to harvest. So you can see we're not quite ready just yet for harvest, but we will be out here probably in the next month to harvest these plots. Wanted to give you a final update. Of course, we don't have any yield yet. As you see, we still got corn standing. But do want to talk to you about what some of the ears are going to look like or are looking like right now, and what some of the data has shown us so far. So as you see, last time I was out here, this is a 0. This is a control. This actually isn't even within our plot. It's only received 25 pounds of nitrogen as starter fertilizer. And you see that, yes, it does look deficient. Yes, it does look like it could have used some nitrogen back when we were outside dressing. But also, I think you'll probably be surprised with how far along we have gotten. And when we look at the ears, I think you'll be surprised at you know, how much grain we were actually able to get on those ears. Versus on this side, we have a plot that has 125 pounds at side dress plus that 25 pounds of starter, so 150 pounds total. You can see that it's showing a little bit of the same symptoms, but we have a much taller plant, and when we look at the ears, you'll see that we did have a little bit more grain on those cobs once we picked a few of them. So let's look at what we're actually seeing within the plots. So here I have our 5 treatments laid out. Remember that everything got 25 pounds of nitrogen, and then we side dressed different rates of nitrogen at V6, V4 to V6. So this received 25 pounds of nitrogen. Then we have 50 pounds of nitrogen, 100 pounds of nitrogen, 150, and 200. So we really wanted to stretch the scale as far as the nitrogen rates are concerned to make sure that we reached our maximum yield out here. Now the soil types found within this field, it's a Clifford soil series, and the realistic yield expectation is 166 bushels per acre. And we'll know whether we met that once we come out here and get harvesting. But the realistic nitrogen rate for this soil type is 126 pounds of nitrogen per acre. So between the 100 pound and 150 pound treatment, we should be reaching our maximum yield or our realistic yield expectation out here. But I would say between, these 3 and these 2 especially, I don't really see much of a difference when it comes to the number of rows and the cob length. So I think that we're going to see a bit of a reduction on the amount of nitrogen needed in this scenario. And that follows along with the tissue test that we pulled back in July as well. We saw that these 2 plots showed low tissue nitrogen, and these 3 plots showed sufficient nitrogen. And so we'll make sure that we update you once we do have the yield harvest data from all of these sites. We started off with 9 through a bunch of different events. We actually ended up only bringing 6 to harvest due to all that rain that we had in May. Didn't get 1 planted, and then we had 1 flood twice in a week. But we've done what we can to get as many plots as we could across the state to that final harvest. And I want to thank all of the extension agents, all of the growers, and my technician, Grace Kilroy. Everyone has been a huge help with this project. And if you are interested as a grower or as an extension agent in seeing this data collected in your county, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk with you about getting this project on your location, and we're looking for 10 sites in 2021. So if you want to participate and be part of this exciting research, please reach out. Y'all have a good one.